Hey, welcome to Life Point and Band of Brothers. We're so glad that you're here and looking forward to a great time of discussion tonight. We're in week 3 of our Samson series, and today we're going to look at small steps towards destruction, some small steps that Samson took and how. But before we get into all that, I just want to share verse 20 of chapter 15. It says that Samson led Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines. Right after he kills 1,000 Philistines, he goes back to Zorah and he leads Israel for 20 years. Seems like peaceful, seems like he's gotten all that behind him. He's got all the wild oats sown and he's done. He's ready to move on with life. So for 20 years, it looks like things are good. And sometimes it looks like things are good in our life because for a long time, we just kind of hold it together. And unfortunately, it's obvious from the rest of the story that Samson never actually dealt with his problem. He just suppressed it. He just covered it up. And then we see that something happens in verse number 1. It says, one day Samson went to Gaza where he saw a prostitute. 20 years. Samson throws 20 years away for one fix, for one moment. And sometimes, unfortunately, we do that. We do stupid stuff like that. I don't know what it would what would cause somebody to do it. I don't know, but it does. And we do it. And Samson did it. And he took 20 years and basically threw them away. And we looked at how Gaza is 25 miles from Zorah, and how 25 miles is about 56,000 steps. And Samson didn't just destroy himself all at once, but he destroyed himself one step at a time. And we do the same thing. It's one step at a time. And we looked at 3 of those steps, 3 things that Samson did. One was that Samson taunted the enemy. He taunted the enemy. He underestimated the enemy's ability to destroy his life and how ferocious the enemy is. And you and I, we're sometimes we make a mockery of the things that we do. Sometimes we joke around about it. But in reality, the enemy wants to destroy us. He's not playing games with us. He wants to kill, steal, and destroy. And he will if we keep walking towards him. And Samson underestimated his enemy, taunted him. And we see how Samson, how he went into Gaza. First of all, Gaza was the epicenter of the Philistine people. It was where the leadership was. It was where the city, the strength of the Philistines were. And Samson went right in the center of it. And sometimes we have this cockiness and this arrogance and this attitude that we can handle it, and we put ourselves into situations and we taunt the enemy. And so he did that. And then we looked at a second step that Samson took, and that's that he rationalized the same old sin. He rationalized it. It was the same old thing. It was the same old struggle that he had. And as you read through chapter 16, you see some of what he did. And the thing that's interesting to me is that Samson was strong enough to kill 1,000 men with the donkey jawbone. He was strong enough to kill 30 men and take their clothes from them to pay off a gambling debt. He was strong enough to kill a lion and rip it apart with his bare hands. And he was strong enough to pull up city gates that weighed 700 pounds and carry him on his shoulders to the top of the hill. He was strong enough to do all that stuff, but he wasn't strong enough to lead a woman. God has called us, guys, those of you who are watching tonight in Life Points, and those of you who are in Band of Brothers, God has called us to lead. And sometimes we get discouraged, sometimes we get frustrated because we don't get the same results at home as we get maybe at work. We don't get the kudos that we get we don't get the kudos at home that we get at work. And listen, there's a difference, because sometimes we think just because we're the head of something that we're leading it. The real test of our leadership and our ability to lead is how well are we leading our wives? How well are we leading our kids? And so we are equipped and wired to lead, and we have to lead. Don't just be strong in business. Don't just be strong in your hobbies and sports and those kind of things, but be strong in leading your family in righteousness, leading people in righteousness. Take your place in the church. Take your place in society, in our community. Take your place and lead. And so Samson, he rationalized that same old sin. And then the third step that Samson took towards destruction was that he assumed that his disobedience would never cost him. So he assumed that his disobedience would never cost him, and it says that he jumped up and shook himself off like everything was gonna be okay after they had shaved his head. But the reality is he didn't realize that the Lord had left him. What a powerful statement, that he didn't know that the Lord had left him. And I don't know how and what's going on in your life, but sometimes we get going and we've taken so many steps and we think just because we got away with something and we didn't get caught and bad things didn't happen, that somehow we'll just get away with it again. And what we don't realize is that the Lord has left us. There will come a time when we're not going to get away with it one more time. And maybe that time's already happened for you, but I want to encourage you. Don't assume that your disobedience will never cost you, because it will cost you. And Samson grossly underestimated that. See, it's those small steps that you take that can lead you towards big destruction, but it's also those small steps that can lead you to God's blessing. And I want to encourage you. It doesn't take turning around and going all the way back home before God responds. But the cool thing about God's grace is that when you turn around and you just take one step back towards God, He responds. And He reaches out to us and He forgives us and He washes us, He makes us new. And so wherever you're at today, if you're watching this online, if you're in a small group, whatever it is, I encourage you to take just that one step and just say, God, I need you. God, I can't do this without you. And God will definitely show up big time in your life. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for watching, and God bless you. Have a great week.